أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها النبي إذا طلقتم النساء فطلقوهن لعدتهن وأحصوا العدة واتقوا الله ربكم لا تخرجوهن من بيوتهن ولا يخرجن إلا أن يأتين بفاحشة مبينة وتلك حدود الله ومن يتعد حدود الله فقد ظلم نفسه لا تدري لعل الله يحدث بعد ذلك أمرا. Continuing and going back to Surah Al-Talaq, we were in Surah Al-Talaq, which is part of the 28th juz, and Surah Al-Talaq comes after Surah Al-Taghabun and many of the surahs before. We had already started the surah, but I'll recap and we'll read the translation at least again with a little bit of explaining of what needs to be known. The surah is also very important, which is in relation to the sequence of the surahs before, which is that surahs before had to do with the togetherness. Surah Al-Jum'ah has to do with unity and togetherness. Surah Al-Saf has to do with unity and togetherness. Surah Al-Munafiqun has to do with also togetherness and unity. Although it's talking about the hypocrites, it also had to do with unity and togetherness. Surah Al-Taghabun has to do with unity and togetherness on the day of resurrection. Surah Al-Talaq has to also do with unity and togetherness. How is unity and togetherness dissolved? What is the proper way that the unity of a marriage is dissolved, and what is need to be known about this? What does the deen have to say about how two married people separate? This is a very important part of the deen, and for that reason there's an entire surah which is dedicated to it. This is not something negative, rather this is a mercy, this is a rahmah, that Allah Azza wa Jal is teaching us our deen, teaching us to the basics of how we do things, even those things which may be negative and not that good, like talaq, which is divorce. And as it comes in hadith, that it is the most disliked of halal which is there. Although a person is allowed to separate from their spouse if needed, that it is the most disliked of what is permissible, what is allowed in the deen. And in that, Allah Azza wa Jal, even in that, Allah Azza wa Jal guides us and tells us what to do and how to do it. And this is very important because it has ta'alluq with a person's akhlaq, direct ta'alluq with a person's akhlaq. Talaq is a situation within which either you choose to have good akhlaq or you choose to have bad akhlaq, depending on regarding whether you are separating or not separating, and what arrangement is being made and how that is being done. This is why Allah Azza wa Jal and His Messenger ﷺ has spoken about this in detail. The surah goes as Allah Azza wa Jal says, O Prophet, when you intend to divorce women, and of course the when you is a specific speech to the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, but then thereafter to all of us as well. When you intend to divorce women, it shall not be done during the menstruation, nor shall you have intimate relations with them thereafter. Rather, divorce them at the beginning of their prescribed waiting period, and count the exact days of the prescribed waiting period. And fear Allah, your Lord. Thus you shall not expel them from their homes, nor are they themselves to depart during this period, unless they commit a flagrant indecency. These then are the ordained limits of Allah, and whoever transgresses and ordained limits of Allah has truly wronged his own soul. Whoever transgresses the ordained limits of Allah has truly wronged his soul. لا تدري لعل الله يحدث بعد ذلك أمرا. You do not know the outcome of your course of action. It may be that after this period, Allah will bring about a resolution to the matter. So again, we had already done tafsir of this ayah, so I will not go into detail of it too much. But it's basically just explaining how what are the etiquette that the talaq has to be given. It has to be given at a certain time, cannot be It is haram to give a talaq when a woman is in her menstrual cycle. And these rules are explained, and there is no shyness in explaining these rules. If you're feeling shy hearing these rules, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ was approached and asked about very intimate and very private and sensitive masail and issues, and women were very shy to ask such questions at times. But the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said there is no shyness when it comes to learning deen. So these are the reality of the matters, that it is haram, impermissible, that talaq is given to a woman when she's in her menstrual cycle. One has to wait, and then one has to wait for each cycle to pass. Thereafter, a person can give a second or a third if needed be. فَإِذَا بَلَغْنَ أَجَلَهُنَّ فَأَمْسِكُوهُنَّ بِمَعْرُوفٍ أَوْ فَارِقُوهُنَّ بِمَعْرُوفٍ. When they reach the end of their stated term of waiting, then either retain them in marriage in accordance with what is right, or part with them in accordance with what is right. So if you decide to continue being married to your wife, then you have to do that with ma'roof, ihsan, you have to do that with goodness, you have to do that with good character. If you're going to part and you're going to separate, you also have to do that with good character. Right? Just because you're parting and separating, that doesn't mean that you have the right to wrong the other person. That doesn't mean that you have the right to say or do whatever you can. That doesn't mean that you have the right to persecute as much as you want. You have to fariquhunna bima'roof. This is a command from Allah, that you have to separate as well with ma'roof, with good intention, with good actions, with kindness, with ihsan. وَأَشْهِدُوا ذَوَيْ عَدْلٍ مِّنْكُمْ وَأَقِيمُوا الشَّهَادَةَ لِلَّهِ. And the process of this has to be done with witnesses. A marriage is done with witnesses. There has to be a minimum of 2 witnesses. And a marriage must also be dissolved with a minimum of 2 witnesses. This is because marriage is a social contract. Marriage is not something that is just simply done privately. Right? Marriage is a part of societal and social norms. So in order for people to come into this contract or to leave this contract, there are social responsibilities, social implications that must come with it as well. This is the reason why shahada is necessary, which is witnessing of this. When a person enters Islam, a witnessing also takes place, right? This witnessing is very important. Okay? There has to be a witnessing, there has to be a testimony. Shahada is testimony. Okay? The reason for society to be testifiers and testimonies of a marriage or of the dissolution of a marriage is to protect the rights of both people. When people have social pressure over them, then they know they have to act correctly. If people are not pressured by society to act correctly, unfortunately, most of the time, people have no etiquette of ethics. People have no morality of what should be done and what should not be done. They have to be forced by society, by social pressure, to do the right thing. And this is unfortunately just the norm of general human beings, except for those whom Allah Azza wa Jal has mercy over and guides them to knowledge. ذَلِكُمْ يُعَظُ بِهِ مَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. This is to admonish whoever of you believes in Allah and in the day of resurrection. This is so that people take a lesson, people take a reflection, people ponder. Who? Those who believe in Allah and those who believe in the hereafter. If you believe in Allah and you believe in the hereafter, then you will follow these guidelines. If you believe in Allah and you believe in the hereafter, you will do these things with ihsan, with kindness, with perfection. You will either live with your spouse or separate from your spouse with ihsan, with perfection. وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. And whoever fears Allah, Allah shall make for him a way out of every difficulty. This part of the verse can be understood in a specific khas manner or in a general manner. The khas manner, the specific manner is that those who are struggling within their marriage and they want to figure out what to do, what is the right thing to do. If you have taqwa, regardless of whether the marriage stays or whether the marriage is dissolved, if you have taqwa, Allah Azza wa Jal will guide you out of your difficulty. If you don't have taqwa, then perhaps you won't have the same outcome. Allah Azza wa Jal may not guide you to the right pathway, to the right decision. The virtue of having taqwa is that Allah Azza wa Jal will create a solution for you. Makhraja. This makhraj means an exit way. So a way out of your misery, a way out of your trials, a way out of your tests. Sometimes this is not that if you're in a financial situation, for example, and you're having difficulty, sometimes Allah Azza wa Jal may not give you more money to ease your difficulty. Allah Azza wa Jal may not give you a better job to ease your difficulty. That's not the only way that difficulty is eased. Sometimes it's not an external solution. Sometimes it is an internal solution. What does that mean? That maybe if you're going through, for example, financial difficulties, and Allah Azza wa Jal opens an exit way for you, a way of relief for you in this situation, maybe it's not that necessarily He'll give you more money, but maybe He'll give you more contentment. Maybe Allah Azza wa Jal will give you the ability to be more simple, so that the money that you have, instead of chasing after a lavish lifestyle, maybe you'll be more content with what you have. Right? Maybe the house that you have and you're chasing a bigger house, Allah will give you contentment instead with the house that you have, and you won't chase after a bigger house. So sometimes the makharaj, the solution to your issues, is not external. Sometimes it's internal. Sometimes the problem is in you. Now, who's going to guide you to the problem in you? Even that, you need Allah's help. We do not all have the solutions to our problems inside of us. The Messenger of Allah actually said, مَن يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا يُبَصِّرْهُ بِعُيُوبِ نَفْسِهِ or بَصَّرَهُ اللَّهُ بِعُيُوبِ نَفْسِهِ. That those whom Allah Azza wa Jal wishes good for, Allah Azza wa Jal will give them insight to the faults of themselves, the faults that are within you. Allah will open your eyes to what is within you. Sometimes the problem is not outside. Sometimes the problem is in you. Right? So, يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Sometimes this solution is an internal solution. That the difficulty that you're going through is causing you to have many different types of emotions. And emotions are normal. Emotions are humane. The Anbiya alayhimus salatu wasalam had emotions. Every single emotion that a human being goes through, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam went through. And the ulama have kutub, books describing this, talking about this, gathering the ayat, gathering the ahadith, which tell us that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had emotions just like any other human being. But when it came to how to regulate those emotions, how to handle those emotions, how to then exit those emotions with relief and resilience and strength, that was due to their akhlaq, their character, and the guidance of Allah given to them. Sometimes we do not find our way out of those emotions. The Anbiya alayhi wasallam, for example, faced anger. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam faced anger. At times he showed anger. But Allah Azza wa Jalla always guided him, and he himself was a man of akhlaq, taqwa, that he was able to control his anger and guide his anger and find a way out, which is relief, the makhraja, a way out, relief of that anger, how to dispose of that anger. Other emotions as well, like sadness. People going through a divorce will have many different emotions. They will have many different problems that they're going through. Some of them external, some of them internal. Sometimes during the process of divorce, sometimes after the process of divorce. This is such a situation that is the community is plagued with it. How many people are having to come and they need support in these issues? They don't know how to handle these issues. Right? The fundamental criteria to how a person will handle these issues is through taqwa. Now the issue is that if a person hasn't built taqwa, then right when this scenario comes to them, they don't have the tools to be able to handle it. They don't have the tool set. They're not ready to handle the situation. So if they're not ready to handle it, then they won't find an exit way. What is the path to relief? They won't find the way. يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. So, even now those emotions, Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying that when a person goes through this separation, which is very difficult, and it should be difficult. Some people, when they separate, they want to act normal, as if nothing happened. And this is a general thing. When people have problems, sometimes they're in such disbelief of their problem. They don't want to recognize that, yes, I'm going through a difficulty, to such a degree that they completely disbelieve in the fact that they're going through a difficulty. So a person going through a divorce or financial difficulty or whatever it is, I'm perfectly normal, no, nothing happened. That's also wrong. Because if you're going through a difficulty, you're supposed to feel it. If you're not feeling it, that's very dangerous. That's very dangerous for your health and your iman. When the Messenger of Allah ﷺ went through difficulty, he felt it. Now, after feeling it, the ability to have resilience and withstand it, that's a separate quality. That's a separate action. So sometimes people want to numb their difficulties. Kuffar numb their difficulties. How? Through alcohol or through different things. They numb themselves. We also do the same thing sometimes. We just don't use alcohol maybe. But we numb our difficulties. We numb our emotions. And then they come after us later on. They chase us later on. Because we didn't handle them. We didn't process them. So one has to have taqwa in their situation. They have to be patient. When going through divorce, why is Allah Azza wa Jalla giving these guidelines? Because when going through divorce, generally people are angry. People are sad. People are bitter. Now when these emotions, these qualities are coming over a person, how are they going to handle it? Depending on how they handle it, Allah Azza wa Jalla will give them a path. If they handle it the way that Allah and His Messenger have guided to handle it, that path will be clear and it will help them. Otherwise, it will be a very confusing pathway. وَيَرْزُقُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. And Allah Azza wa Jalla will provide for that for those people. From where a person has never conceived. Sometimes the fear of the dissolving of these relationships, one may fear their rizq, one may have many different, fearful anticipations of what could happen, what will happen after. If a person has taqwa, and does things the right way, Allah Azza wa Jal will grant them rizq. Allah Azza wa Jal will grant them rizq from a way that they never understood. This ayah was also revealed, one of the ahadith mentions, that there was a Sahabi who was, after becoming Muslim, he was captured by his tribe. His tribe was not Muslim. His tribe captured him and they chained him and they tortured him. After some time, the news came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that this Sahabi was freed. Somehow he fled. Somehow he was found safety from the torture and the capturing of his tribe. After some time, the Sahabi returned with many animals, many sheep or goats, whatever it was, many animals back to Medina Munawwara. And Rasulullah ﷺ saw him. So then this ayah was revealed. That the Sahabi had taqwa, he had patience, he showed strength. Not only did Allah Azza wa Jal free him from his difficulties, but Allah Azza wa Jal granted him as well then rizq. And it also comes in the hadith that Rasulullah ﷺ had sent a message to this companion while he was captured, that recite La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Recite that there is no power except by Allah Azza wa Jal. So tawakkul is important. Right? This is why the next part of the ayah said, وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Whoever relies on Allah, Allah will be sufficient for him. Allah will be sufficient for him. So, how does this work? What is tawakkul? Tawakkul is that a person does everything that they can do in their ability and their capacity, and then after that leaves their matter up to Allah. But the condition is that you have to do everything in your means. If you haven't done everything in your means, or you haven't done anything at all to solve your problem, that's not tawakkul. And then you say Allah will handle it. You recite one dua and Allah will handle it. This is not tawakkul. This is not what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did. This is not what the Sahaba learned. Tawakkul is that a person does everything in their capacity, does everything in their means that they're able to do, that they know of, that is available to them from the means, from this dunya. And then after that, they don't continuously have anxiety that I did this, what's going to happen? I did whatever I have to do, what's going to happen? Now what's going to happen? They don't have anxiety, they leave it up to Allah Azza wa Jal now. That, okay, I've done everything I can do. We all need to recognize that not everything in this world happens the way we want it to happen. So you do as much as you can, and then you leave the rest to Allah. That's tawakkul. That's that a person has iman, faith upon Allah Azza wa Jal. Famous hadith, you all know of it, everyone gives the example. I'qilha wa tawakkal. That tie your camel and then have tawakkul. Or tie your camel and have tawakkul. See, this is a mistake. Tie your camel and then have tawakkul. The hadith doesn't say and then have tawakkul. Tawakkul is a part of the process of tying the camel. Before you tie the camel, while you're tying the camel, and after you tie the camel. Or before you do whatever you have to do, while you're doing it, and then thereafter. Tawakkul is part of the entire process. That throughout the process you say Bismillah, you remember Allah. Throughout the process in your heart you ask, oh Allah, this is what I'm doing. Throughout the process, Ibrahim ﷺ is building the Kaaba and he's making dua throughout the process. Right. Throughout, before the Battle of Badr, during the Battle of Badr, before the onset, the beginning of the Battle of Badr, in the Battle of Badr, and after the Battle of Badr, Rasulullah ﷺ is making dua. That's tawakkul. Right. Tawakkul is not that you make a dua and then you wait and Allah Azza wa Jalla is going to solve your problem. That's not tawakkul. You have to solve your problem. You have to make the effort to solve your problem. When you make the effort, then Allah Azza wa Jalla will solve your problems. قَدْ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدْرًا. This is because Allah Azza wa Jal has indeed proportioned a due measure for everything. Truly, all things have a proportion measure. Allah Azza wa Jal has created a time, a portion for things. If you're going through difficulty, you will have to withstand it for some time. It will not go away right away. You will have to be patient. This dunya is of trials. The trials, they come and go. When those trials come, you have to wait for their time to go. Whether that is an external trial or whether that is an internal trial, you have to give it time. When you give things time, Allah Azza wa Jal will raise those things. Allah Azza wa Jal will uplift those things, open doors. So this is an important part of the process of handling things in your family. That you must have taqwa, you must have tawakkul. Taqwa and tawakkul, very important qualities that a person must have in these matters. And Allah Azza wa Jalla says, "Inna Allah balighu amri." Allah Azza wa Jalla will surely attain His purpose. At the end of every matter, what Allah Azza wa Jalla has intended for you, that will unfold. That will unfold. Now, whether it is in your favor or not, that's up to Allah Azza wa Jal. But how you deal with it is what you are responsible with. Sometimes the solution to a problem is a bigger problem. We will never understand how Allah Azza wa Jal writes taqdeer for us. We will never understand. Sometimes the solution to a problem is a bigger problem. But within that, if you learn to be more patient, if you learn to be stronger, that's a gift from Allah. Strength and power and resilience, this is a gift from Allah given to the people. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ was at times tested with trials, and after them trials bigger than those trials. Not trials smaller than them. Sometimes the problems only escalated. And if you look at the seerah, then you'll understand these things, that Allah Azza wa Jal writes for you what He writes for you. We do not have a say in that. But in the process, in the midst of it, the condition of your heart and the condition of how you handle the situations, that's where the quality of a person's iman will unfold. That's where the quality of a person's iman will unveil. That how is the person handling and coping with it? The Messenger of Allah ﷺ is the greatest example. Why? Because he was tested more than any other being and creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. No being from Adam alayhi salatu wasalam all the way to the last of mankind was tested or will be tested as much as our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was tested. But his life shows that you cannot be desperate and you cannot, just be in a state of desperation that Allah, it needs to be this way. And this is what happens many times. People, when going through divorce or going through financial difficulties as well, that they become so bitter that, oh, why isn't Allah doing it this way? They complain, why isn't Allah doing it this way? Why is Allah doing this with me? Right? And that's a problem. Because to feel an emotion is one thing, but when your heart is saying something against Allah, and perhaps then your tongue says something against Allah, that's even more severe. That your tongue now says something, Allah, why did you do this to me? Or why is God doing this to me? This is something that one has to be afraid of. So the heart, how the heart handles these situations is what Allah Azza wa Jalla is looking at. right? How is the heart going to handle these situations? Right? So one has to wait for an allotted period. So this is the general advice now to any difficulty in a person's life, that you must have taqwa and you must have tawakkul and you must be patient and wait. You cannot just, Allah has to do this right now for me. That's not how things happen. Nor is that the way that the ulama understood things to be. Right? The ulama understood from the lives of the Anbiya ﷺ and from the lives of the Sahaba that you do everything you can do and you wait. You wait and you show strength and you show resilience. You take social support, help from the people around you, and you wait for Allah Azza wa Jal to open that gateway to you. We'll just conclude with the next ayah. In the next ayah, Allah Azza wa Jal says, واللائي يئسن من المحيض من نسائكم إن ارتبتم فعدتهن ثلاثة أشهر واللائي لم يحضن. That as to those women, again there's kind of a time frame. There are time frames of how divorce takes place in Islam and how a person must do his divorce. So women who have passed the age of having a menstrual cycle, or some women have irregular menstrual cycles, that sometimes the menstrual cycle doesn't come before 3 months, sometimes it's after 4 or 5 months. And by the way, these are very important masail. You think, why is the ayat talking about this? Why is the ayat directly speaking about the menstrual cycle? These are very important masail. And most of us don't know these masail, and unfortunately most of our women don't know these masail. Those women who have have irregular or do not have anymore a menstrual cycle, then the period of their iddah will be 3 months. Versus women who have a menstrual cycle, their iddah period is 3 cycles. وَاللَّائِي لَمْ يَحِضْنَ وَأُولَاتُ الْأَحْمَالِ أَجْلُهُنَّ أَنْ يَضَعْنَ حَمْلَهُنَّ. And as for those who are bearing children, those who are pregnant, then their stated term, their iddah period, is whenever they deliver their child. They must deliver their child, and then that is when the iddah period will end. وَمَنْ, Allah Azza wa Jalla saying again, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِ يُسْرًا. That those who fear Allah, Allah shall make his difficult matter easy for him. Again, the condition of having ease in your affairs, ease of your difficulties, is not that you do what you want, is not that you handle it the way you think you want to handle it. Rather, it's by following what Allah and His Messenger have said to do. If you do what they've told you to do, Allah will give you ease. If you don't do what they've told you to do, then don't expect ease. Don't expect ease. This is very explicit in these ayat. وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِ. Who those, the condition, this is a conditional statement. Jumlatul shart, this is a conditional statement. The condition to having ease, if you want Allah to make ease for you, is that you must obey His law. If you do not obey His law, then don't expect ease. The ease is within His law. This is another important factor, that sometimes we think Allah's sharia is difficult, and that by following Allah's sharia, that things will be difficult for us. We need to change our mindset. The ease is within the sharia, not outside of the sharia. There are people that have made their lives very easy. Right? People that don't believe in Allah, people that have all the luxuries that they want, all the money that they want, but they're still restless. They can't sleep good at night. They don't have peace of mind. They're afraid of death. They're unable to cope with their trials in life. Again, the solution and the ease is not necessarily that the situation will be easy. Allah Azza wa Jalla says regarding fasting of Ramadan, that Allah wants ease for you. Fasting is not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. Think about, now we have AC, now we're our fast is very easy, even externally. But think about the fast of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the heat of the Arabian Peninsula. Think about the fast of people who are fasting. You know, the ease is not that Allah Azza wa Jal will necessarily uplift the situation. Look at our brothers and sisters of Gaza. The situation has not been uplifted from them. But they have iman and sabr. That's the ease. It's very difficult to understand and very difficult to see. That doesn't mean that what's happening is okay. Of course, may Allah Azza wa Jal protect them. But what's being said is that if a difficulty comes upon you, how easy will it be for your heart to have and remain upon iman? That's the first most fundamental test. Because when people generally face tests, the first thing that is tested is a person's iman. Are you going to argue with Allah or not? Are you going to be patient? So يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِ يُسْرًا, Allah will make easy for you, does not mean necessarily also that it can mean that Allah will take the situation away. But it does not necessarily mean that. You may have to wait a long time, but your heart will be at ease. Some people are going through many difficulties. And, such difficulties that they don't even need to tell anyone. Why? Because Allah Azza wa Jalla has given them such strength in their heart that they know that Allah knows and they're fine with that. And they're going along with their situation. That's yusra, that's ease. Right? And we'll stop here, inshaAllah. May Allah Azza wa Jalla grant us understanding of these ayat and the ability to bring them within our lives. And may He forgive us for any mistakes in our attempt to understand His perfect word, for His perfect word is much beyond our comprehension. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. صدق الله العظيم. سبحان الله بحمده. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك. نشهد أن لا